Red lights painted the corridors in waves of crimson panic. Daniel Reed pressed his back against the cold metal wall as alien cadets rushed past him in every direction. Some had too many legs. Others floated on anti-gravity fields. A few moved in ways that hurt to look at directly. They all shared the same expression, though. The universal language of terror stretched across a dozen different face structures. Daniel had only arrived at Galactic Defense Academy 3 days ago. Earth's first participant in the program. Historic moment for humanity. Great honor. All that official speech nonsense. Right now, he just wanted to understand what everyone was screaming about. His translator earpiece kept glitching, turning the emergency announcements into garbled static mixed with words that made no sense. Something about a breach. Something about Subject 47. Something about staying in designated safe zones. The recreation lounge had emptied in seconds when the alarm started. Daniel found himself alone, with half-finished games scattered across tables and a drink dispenser still humming in the corner. He grabbed his backpack and headed for what he assumed was the dormitory section. The station layout still confused him. Everything looked the same. Metal walls, harsh lighting, doors that opened with a hiss. He turned down a corridor that should have been sealed. The blast door hung halfway open, sparking slightly where the mechanism had jammed. Daniel squeezed through without thinking much about it. The academy had been running drills all week. Probably just another test to see how the new cadets handled stress. The hallway beyond was quieter. Empty. His footsteps echoed off the walls. Daniel relaxed slightly and checked his datapad for a map. The screen flickered with the same useless static as his earpiece. Fantastic. Lost in an alien space station during some kind of emergency drill. This would make a great story to tell the folks back home that a sound stopped him cold. Low and rumbling. Like thunder rolling across a distant plain. But this was no storm. This was something alive. Something big. Something very close. Daniel turned slowly. At the far end of the corridor, where the lights flickered weakest, a shadow moved. Not just any shadow. This one had weight. Presence. The kind of mass that made the floor vibrate with each step. She emerged from the darkness like a nightmare given flesh. Golden bronze, fur matted with blood and chemicals. Shoulders broader than Daniel was tall. Paws the size of dinner plates. Each toe tipped with claws that scraped the metal floor. Her head was massive, shaped like the great cats from Earth, but larger. So much larger. Fangs showed between lips pulled back in pain or anger or both. This was Subject 47, the thing everyone was running from. The monster that had triggered station-wide lockdown. Daniel should have run. Every instinct screamed at him to turn and sprint back the way he came. But his legs wouldn't move. Not from fear paralysis. From something else. Something he recognized in the way she held herself. The creature was hurt, favoring her left rear leg. Multiple wounds on her shoulders leaked dark blood. Patches of fur missing where tranquilizer darts had torn free. One ear was shredded. Her breathing came in labored gasps. She wasn't hunting. She was fleeing. Their eyes met across the corridor. Hers were amber, like honey held up to sunlight. Intelligent eyes. Aware eyes. Scared eyes. Daniel made a choice that would either save his life or end it. He sat down right there on the floor, crossed his legs, set his backpack beside him, made himself small. Non threatening. The way you approach a frightened animal back home. The way his grandfather taught him to handle the aggressive dogs at the shelter where they volunteered. The creature stopped advancing. Her head tilted slightly. Confusion flickered across features built for killing. This prey was acting wrong. Prey ran. Prey screamed. Prey didn't sit down and stare calmly. Daniel kept his breathing steady. Slow in, slow out. He'd read somewhere that predators could sense fear through chemical signals. No idea if that worked across species, but it couldn't hurt to try. He started talking. Didn't matter what he said. The creature couldn't understand English anyway. The tone mattered more than the words. Hey there. Rough day, huh? Yeah, I can see that. Those look like they hurt. I bet they do. Must be scared. I would be too. It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you. Nobody here is going to hurt you. Not while I'm around anyway. The creature took another step. Then another. Each movement careful. Testing. Her muscles rippled under that blood-stained fur. She could cross the distance between them in a heartbeat. Could tear him apart before he finished his next breath. Daniel kept talking, kept his hands visible and still. The creature was close enough now that he could smell her. Blood and chemicals and something else. Something wild and alive. Like the big cat enclosure at the zoo on a summer day, she lowered her head, brought that massive face level with his. Her breath washed over him, hot and heavy. Those amber eyes studied him with an intensity that felt almost human, looking for something, evaluating, deciding. Daniel slowly reached into his backpack. The creature's lips pulled back, showing every razor tooth. He moved even slower, drew out his water container, the standard issue bottle they'd given him on day one. He sat on the floor between them, pushed it gently in her direction. The creature glanced at the bottle. Back at Daniel. Back at the bottle. She sniffed it carefully. Then her rough tongue lapped at the opening. She drank desperately, nearly crushing the bottle with one paw to hold it steady. Somewhere distant, alarms still screamed. Somewhere above them, security forces were probably mobilizing. Somewhere in the command center, someone was watching through security cameras and losing their mind. But here in this empty corridor, a human and a monster shared water in silence. Daniel smiled. That's better, isn't it? Now let's see what we could do about those wounds. Commander Yareth's 4 hands gripped the edges of the command console hard enough to leave dents. His compound eyes tracked every screen showing the corridor where human Cadet was currently sitting within biting distance of the most dangerous predator ever brought to Harmony Station. He's insane, someone whispered from the back of the command center. He's dead, another voice corrected. Just doesn't know it yet. Yareth said nothing. His species had spent millions of years as prey animals on their homeworld. Every instinct he possessed screamed at him to send in the kill team immediately. But something about the scene unfolding on the monitors made him pause. The human wasn't acting like prey. And more disturbing, Subject 47 wasn't acting like a predator. Down in the corridor, Daniel had torn his shirt into strips. The academy uniform was pretty cheap anyway. Not much loss. He worked slowly, keeping his movements predictable. The creature watched him with those unervingly intelligent eyes. She hadn't attacked yet. That had to count for something. Okay, so here's the thing, Daniel said, still maintaining his calm tone. Those wounds are going to get infected if we don't clean them. How about a basic first aid kit? Nothing fancy, but it might help. The creature tilted her head again. That same confused gesture, like she was trying to understand not just his words, but his entire existence. Why wasn't he running? Why was he helping? The questions were clear in her expression, even without shared language. Daniel opened his first aid kit. Standard issue for cadets. Meant for minor cuts and bruises. Not treating massive predators with tranquilizer dart wounds. He'd have to improvise. Story of his life, really. He held up an antiseptic white packet. Let her see it. Smell it. Then slowly, telegraphing every movement, he reached toward the wound on her shoulder. She growled, deep and resonant, a sound that vibrated in his chest cavity. Daniel froze. I know it's scary, but this will help. I promise. He stayed frozen, hand extended, waiting, letting her decide. The growl faded. She sniffed his hand. Then, in a gesture that made the command center collectively gasp, she leaned her shoulder toward him, permission granted. Daniel cleaned the wounds as gently as possible. Each touch made the creature flinch, but she held still. Trusted him. The word felt absurd given the circumstances, but there was no other way to describe it. This apex predator was trusting a human she'd met 10 minutes ago. You know what I think? Daniel said, working on the second wound. I think someone kept you locked up somewhere. I think they hurt you. I think you got scared and ran. And now everyone's treating you like the bad guy when really you're just trying to survive. The creature made a sound. Not a growl. Something else. Almost like a whimper. Daniel's heart broke a little. Whatever this being was, wherever she came from, she understood pain. She understood fear. That made her a person in his book, not a monster. He finished with the visible wounds and sat back. The creature studied him for a long moment. Then she did something that made absolutely no sense from a predator behavior standpoint. She lay down, right there on the cold metal floor, stretched out to her full impressive length. And she looked at him with an expression that clearly said, "Well, aren't you going to continue?" Daniel laughed. Couldn't help it. The sound startled them both. But then the creature made a noise that might have been her version of amusement. A deep rumbling purr that made the floor vibrate. "You're something else, you know that." Daniel moved closer. The creature's tail swished once. Not aggressive. More like a cat back home showing contentment. He'd grown up with cats. Big, small, and everything in between. His mom ran a rescue. He'd seen every type of feline behavior imaginable. This creature, whatever species she belonged to, had the same basic body language, the same needs, the same desire for connection. Daniel found himself scratching behind her ears. The creature's eyes closed. That purring sound grew louder. He worked his way down her neck, along her spine, finding the spots that made her lean into his touch. Years of experience with Earth's cats translated across light years of evolution that in the command center. Dr. Nilera leaned forward. She was the station's xenopsychologist. A threen, which meant her people had evolved from pack hunters. She understood predator behavior better than most of the staff. "Commander," she said quietly, "I believe we're witnessing something unprecedented. We're witnessing a cadet about to die," Yareth replied, though his voice lacked conviction. "No, we're witnessing first contact between predator species. Look at the human's body language. He's not afraid. He's communicating. And she's responding." Another officer spoke up. "The human must be using some kind of technology. Pheromones. Chemical manipulation." Dr. Nilera shook her head. "Humans don't have that technology. This is something else. Something we've never seen, because most species in the galaxy evolve as prey. We flee from predators. We contain them. We fear them. But humans evolved alongside predators. They learned to coexist." "That's impossible," someone said. "Then explain what you're watching." No one could. Down in the corridor, Daniel had progressed to rubbing the creature's belly. She'd rolled onto her side, exposing her most vulnerable area. Complete trust. He could feel old scars under the fur. Evidence of a hard life. Evidence of suffering. "Someone hurt you bad, didn't they?" Daniel said softly. "Someone took you from your home. Kept you locked up. Treated you like a thing instead of a person. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that happened to you." The creature opened one eye, looked at him, and in that look Daniel saw understanding. She knew he got it, knew he saw her as more than a monster. "My name's Daniel," he said. "Don't suppose you can tell me yours?" The creature made a sound, complex and multi-toned. Impossible for human vocal cords to reproduce. But it was definitely a name. Her name. "Okay, I can't pronounce that. How about I call you Sereth?" "That work." Another purr. Louder this time. Daniel took that as a yes. "Sereth, it is then." 3 hours into the lockdown, Daniel's legs had gone numb. Sereth's head rested in his lap, her breathing deep and even. She'd finally fallen asleep, exhausted from pain and fear and whatever hell she'd escaped from. He didn't dare move. Didn't want to wake her. Besides, where would he go? The blast doors were sealed and armed security waited on the other side. His datapad had finally stopped glitching. The translator working properly now. He'd managed to access the station database using his cadet credentials. Probably wasn't supposed to be able to do that, but the Academy's security protocols were clearly more concerned with keeping Sereth contained than keeping students out of files. What he found made his blood boil. Subject 47. Designation only, no real name listed. Species, Ravashi from Char Prime. Classification, Apex Predator, Extreme Danger. Captured 3 years ago under Galactic Wildlife Protection Act. Reason, Sanctuary and Study of Endangered Species. That all sounded official and proper. Then Daniel kept reading. Housing, Isolation Cell 4B, dimensions 3 by 3 meters. For a creature that could stretch nearly 4 meters long. 3 years in a cage barely big enough to turn around in. Feeding schedule, nutrient paste, twice daily. No environmental enrichment listed. No socialización. No contact with any beings except researchers in full protective gear. The medical logs were worse. Monthly blood draws. Tissue samples. Dental examinations performed under full sedation. Tests for aggression response, pain tolerance, fear conditioning. That last one made Daniel's stomach turn. They'd been deliberately scaring her, measuring how much trauma it took to break her. There were notes about her behavior. Increasing signs of psychological distress, depression, repetitive movements, self-harm. The researchers documented it all with clinical detachment. Subject exhibits stress behaviors. Subject resistance to handling procedures increased. Subject becoming unmanageable. And oh kidding, she became unmanageable. They tortured her for 3 years and wondered why she stopped cooperating. The escape happened during a routine cage cleaning. Sareth had never shown aggression towards staff before. Then today, when they opened the door, she'd exploded outward, knocked 2 guards unconscious, destroyed 3 security drones, made it halfway across the station before they sealed the sections and trapped her in this corridor. With him, Daniel looked down at the sleeping predator using his lap as a pillow. This wasn't a monster. This was a person who'd been pushed past her breaking point. A person who'd lost everything and was fighting to survive the only way she knew how. His communicator crackled. He'd forgotten he even had it. The voice that came through was stiff, formal, probably some high-ranking officer prepared to order him around. Cadet Reed, this is Station Director Home. You need to evacuate that corridor immediately. We're authorized to use lethal force on Subject 47. Daniel's hand moved to the communicator before his brain caught up with his mouth. No, silence. Long enough that he thought the connection died. Then, excuse me. I said no. You're not killing her. Cadet, that creature is extremely dangerous. It has already injured multiple personnel. We cannot allow it to remain alive and risk further casualties. Daniel's voice was steel. She is a person. Her name is Sareth. And she only hurt people because you people hurt her first. More silence. Daniel heard muffled voices in the background. People arguing. He didn't care. He kept his hand on Sareth's head, scratching gently behind her ear. She shifted in her sleep, pressing closer to him. Cadet Reed. A new voice. Female. Calmer. My name is Dr. Nilera. I'm a station psychologist. I've been watching you with Subject 47. What you've accomplished is remarkable, but we need to think about everyone's safety, including yours. Then stop calling her Subject 47. Stop treating her like a lab experiment. She's sapient. I've seen it in her eyes. She understands way more than your files give her credit for. Even if that's true, we can't just release her. The legal complications alone, I don't care about legal complications. Daniel surprised himself with the anger in his voice. I care that you people kidnapped her from her home, locked her in a cage for 3 years, ran experiments on her like she was property. Then when she finally fought back, you decided the easiest solution was to kill her. It's not that simple. Yeah, actually it is. You screwed up. Your research program screwed up. And now you want to cover it up by eliminating the evidence. Well, guess what? I'm not moving. You want to shoot her? You'll have to shoot through me first. Sareth stirred at his raised voice. Those amber eyes opened, immediately alert. Daniel forced himself to calm down, resumed his gentle scratching. She relaxed again but stayed awake, watching him. Doctor. Nilera spoke again. Daniel, may I call you Daniel? I understand you're angry. You have every right to be. The treatment Subject 47 received was unacceptable. I've been filing complaints about the research wing for months. But threatening to die for a creature you met a few hours ago isn't rational. Rational? Daniel laughed without humor. Doc, I'm from Earth. We're the planet where people run into burning buildings to save dogs. Where we adopt apex predators as pets. Where we cry over animals we've never met dying in movies. Dying to protect someone who can't protect themselves? That's the most human thing possible. He's right. A new voice joined the channel. Older. Male. This is Ambassador Chun, representing Earth in the Galactic Defense Coalition. Cadet Reed's behavior, while unorthodox, aligns with core human values. If the station proceeds with lethal force, Earth will file formal protests. We'll also demand investigation into all research wing activities. Director Holm came back on. He sounded tired. This is a disaster. Only if you make it one, Daniel said. Give her a chance. Let me bring her somewhere safe. Somewhere better than that cage you kept her in. I'll take full responsibility. If she attacks anyone, she won't. Not if people stop treating her like a threat. Long pause. Daniel could practically hear calculations happening. Political considerations. Legal ramifications. Public relations nightmares. Finally, you have one chance, Cadet. One, bring her to Base 7. We've cleared a cargo space. If this goes wrong, if anyone gets hurt, the consequences will be severe. Understood. The channel closed. Daniel looked at Sareth. She looked back. Understanding passed between them without words. They both knew the stakes. They both knew the risk. Ready to trust me one more time? Daniel asked. Sareth stood, stretched, nodded once. Together they walked toward whatever came next. The blast door opened with a hiss that made every guard in the corridor flinch. Weapons raised. Targeting lasers painted red dots across the opening. Daniel stepped through first, one hand resting on Sareth's shoulder. She followed so close behind that he could feel her breath on his neck. 50 meters to Base 7. Might as well have been 50 kilometers. Guards lined both sides of the corridor. Vantori in full combat armor. Threen with plasma rifles. A few species Daniel didn't recognize, all armed to the teeth. Every weapon tracked Sareth's movement. Every finger rested on a trigger. One wrong move, and they'd both be vapor. Daniel kept walking. Steady pace. Not too fast. Not too slow. He talked the whole way, keeping his voice calm. Didn't matter what he said. Sareth couldn't understand most of it anyway. The tone mattered. The connection mattered. You're doing great. Just keep moving. Don't look at them. Look at me. That's it. Nice and easy. Sareth's claws clicked against the metal floor. Each step deliberate. Controlled. Her muscles were tense under his hand, but she held herself together. Showed more restraint than half the guards who looked ready to panic fire at any moment. Halfway down the corridor, a young Vantori guard shifted his stance. His plasma rifle swung slightly toward them. Sareth's lips pulled back, showing teeth. A warning, not an attack, just a reminder that she could defend herself if needed. The guard's finger tightened on the trigger. Stand down. Commander Yareth's voice barked over the speakers. All personnel, stand down. Nobody fires unless I give the order. The guard lowered his weapon. Barely. Daniel kept walking. His heart hammered, but he didn't let it show. Couldn't let it show. Fear was contagious. If he panicked, Sareth would panic. If Sareth panicked, people would die. They passed rows of windows where other cadets watched. Some pressed their faces against the glass. Others kept their distance, ready to run. Daniel recognized a few from his orientation group. They'd seemed friendly enough before. Now, they looked at him like he'd grown a second head. Or maybe like he was already dead. Almost there, Daniel said. Base 7 was visible now. The doors stood open. Inside, he could see the space they prepared. Much larger than the corridor. Not ideal, but better than that cage. Just a bit further. Sareth made a low sound. Not quite a growl. More like she was asking a question. Daniel glanced at her. Those amber eyes met his. Trust and uncertainty mixed together. I know you're scared, but I promise it'll be okay. I won't let them hurt you again. Empty promise, maybe. He was one human cadet with exactly zero authority and even less experience. But sometimes all you could offer was your word and hope it meant something. They reached Base 7. Daniel stepped inside. Sareth hesitated at the threshold. Every instinct probably screamed trap. Enclosed space. Unknown territory. No escape route. All the hallmarks of danger. Daniel turned to face her. Put himself between her and the guards. Hey, look at me. Right here. You've trusted me this far. Trust me a little longer. Sareth stared at him. At the space beyond. At the guards still holding weapons. Decision time. Fight or flight or faith. She stepped inside. The doors sealed immediately. Magnetic locks engaged with a heavy clunk. They were contained. Safe. Trapped. Depending on your perspective. Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. Sareth shook herself like a wet dog throwing off water. Then she started exploring the space. Sniffing corners. Testing walls with her paws. searching for exits that didn't exist. The bay was meant for cargo, not living beings. But someone had tried to make it comfortable. Padded flooring in one corner. A water dispenser attached to the wall. Food containers stacked nearby. Even some kind of scratching post, though it looked comically small compared to Sereth's size. IT was still a prison. Bigger than before. Nicer than before. But still a cage. Sereth seemed to realize this at the same moment. She stopped exploring. Sat down in the middle of the floor. Her tail wrapped around her body. Every line of her posture screamed defeat. Daniel sat beside her. Didn't say anything. Sometimes there was nothing to say. Sometimes you just had to be present. That a screen flickered to life on the wall. Director Holm appeared, looking like he'd aged 10 years in the last 4 hours. Cadet read, "The board will convene tomorrow to determine next steps. For now, you're confined to Base 7 with Subject 47. Her name is Sereth." With Sereth, Holm corrected himself, though he looked pained doing it. "Food will be delivered. Medical staff will check on you both. Try to rest." The screen went dark. Daniel leaned back against Sereth's side. She was warm, solid, real. 3 hours ago, he didn't know she existed. Now he'd risked everything for her. Funny how life worked. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "I know this isn't freedom, but it's better than before. And I'm going to make sure it gets even better." Somehow, Sereth turned her head, looked at him with those two intelligent eyes. Then she did something that made Daniel's chest tighten. She gently headbutted him, the way cats did when they were showing affection. The way his old tabby used to do when Daniel came home from school. Universal language. Gratitude without words. Daniel wrapped his arms around her neck, buried his face in her fur. She smelled like blood and chemicals and fear. But underneath all that was something else. Something wild and alive and worth fighting for. "We're going to get through this," he whispered. "Both of us. Together." Outside Base 7, Commander Yareth watched the monitors. Dr. Nilera stood beside him, taking notes on her data pad. "What do you think?" Yareth asked. "I think that human just rewrote our understanding of predator behavior." "Is that a good thing?" Dr. Nilera smiled. "Ask me tomorrow, after we see if they both survive the night." But in Base 7, Daniel and Sereth had already fallen asleep. Her body curled protectively around his smaller form, his hand resting on her paw. Two predators from different worlds finding safety in each other. The galaxy was about to learn something new about Earth's strangest export. Humans didn't just survive alongside predators. They befriended them, and that changed everything. The disciplinary board consisted of 7 members representing different species and departments. They sat in a semicircle, elevated above where Daniel stood. Classic intimidation setup. He'd seen enough movies to recognize the power play. Daniel wore his cadet uniform, freshly cleaned, no bloodstains, no tears, looking as professional as possible when you were facing possible expulsion for befriending a creature everyone else considered deadly. Sereth was confined to Base 7 during the hearing. Daniel hated leaving her alone, but didn't have a choice. She'd pressed her face against the observation window when he left. Made that questioning sound again. He'd promised to come back. Hoped he could keep that promise. Cadet Daniel Reed. Director Holm spoke first. He looked even worse than yesterday. Probably hadn't slept. "You stand accused of violating lockdown protocols, disobeying direct orders, and endangering station personnel. How do you plead?" "Guilty to the first 2. Not guilty to the last one." Murmurs around the room. One board member, a threen with silver scales, leaned forward. "You don't believe you endangered anyone?" "No, ma'am. Sereth never attacked anyone who wasn't actively trying to hurt her. She was defending herself. That's not the same as being dangerous. She injured guards, destroyed property, after being tortured for 3 years. I read the files. What happened to her was illegal under your own Galactic Wildlife Protection Act. The research wing violated every protocol. Sereth was the victim, not the criminal." More murmurs. Louder this time. Director Holm raised a hand for silence. "The research wing is under separate investigation. We're here to discuss your actions. My actions saved lives." Daniel kept his voice level, respectful but firm. "If I hadn't intervened, you would have killed Sereth. then the truth about the research wing would have died with her. Instead, she's alive. Nobody else got hurt. And now we can actually fix the problems instead of covering them up. A Vantori board member spoke up. His voice carried multiple harmonics. Made Daniel's teeth ache. You risked your life for a creature you just met. That shows poor judgment. Respectfully, sir, it shows human judgment. We don't abandon people just because they're different. We don't kill beings just because they scare us. That's not weakness. That's civilization. Pretty speech. The Threen again. But you're asking us to believe you had noble intentions. Maybe you just wanted attention. To be the hero. Daniel felt anger flare, but pushed it down. You watched the footage. Does it look like I wanted attention? I sat on a floor for 3 hours, treating wounds and talking to someone who couldn't understand me. I did it because it was right. Because Sareth needed help and nobody else was offering. Dr. Nalera entered the room, carrying a data pad. She wasn't on the board, but had been called as an expert witness. If I may address the board? Holm nodded. She brought up holographic displays showing the security footage, annotated with her observations. I've studied this interaction extensively. What Cadet Reed accomplished should be impossible according to our understanding of predator behavior. He recognized patterns we've never documented. He used techniques we don't teach. And he achieved results that our entire security force with advanced weapons couldn't match. Because he's human, someone muttered. Exactly because he's human. Dr. Nilera enlarged a frame, showing Daniel scratching Sareth's ears. Earth is unique in the galaxy. Most species evolved as prey or without significant predator presence. Humans avulva aluncida apax predatos. They didn't just survive. They learned to coexist, to cooperate. Some even domesticated predators as companions. That's different. Those were animals. Is it different? Dr. Nilera pulled up another image. Sareth's eyes, captured in perfect detail. Look at this. Really look. I've spent 2 decades studying xenopsychology. Those eyes show sapient thought, self-awareness, emotional complexity. Sareth isn't an animal. She's a person. Cadet Reed saw that immediately. The rest of us were too afraid to look. The room fell silent. Daniel watched board members study the image. Saw some of them actually seeing Sareth for the first time. Not as a threat. As a being. Commander Yareth stood from his seat in the observation area. Permission to speak? Holm looked surprised, but nodded. I've commanded security for 15 years. I've handled hundreds of dangerous situations. By every protocol, every regulation, every standard procedure, I should have ordered lethal force immediately. Subject 47 was an active threat. She'd already injured personnel. The risk was too high. He paused, for hands clasped behind his back. But Cadet Reed showed me something I've forgotten. Protocols exist to protect people. All people. Not just the ones we find easy to understand. Sareth is a person. She deserved a chance. Reed gave her that chance when the rest of us were too frightened to try. So you support his actions? The Threen asked. I support his results. Nobody died. Nobody else got hurt. And we discovered systematic abuse in our research wing. If Reed had followed orders, we would have killed an innocent being to cover up crimes. That's not justice. That's cowardice. More silence. Longer this time. Board members exchanged looks. Some reached for their data pads. Others stared at the frozen image of Sareth's eyes. Finally, Holmes spoke. Cadet Reed, your methods were unorthodox. You violated direct orders. You put yourself at enormous risk. Under normal circumstances, that would mean immediate expulsion. Daniel's heart sank. However, Holmes continued, these are not normal circumstances. You exposed serious ethical violations. You prevented what would have been a wrongful execution. And you demonstrated skills we didn't know were possible. The board has reached a decision. He paused for effect. Daniel wanted to throw something. You will receive an official reprimand for violating lockdown protocols. This will remain on your record. You will also be assigned additional duties helping redesign our xenobiology safety standards. And finally, you will be responsible for Sareth's continued care and integration. It took a moment for the words to register. Integration? Sareth cannot return to her homeworld. She's been away too long. But she also cannot remain in containment. We're offering her a position in our security training program. If she accepts, if you think she's capable, she's capable. Daniel didn't hesitate. She's more than capable. Then make it work. Both of you. Show us that cooperation between predator species is possible. Teach us what humans apparently know instinctively. The board dismissed him. Daniel walked out feeling like he could float. Maybe fly. He headed straight for Base 7. Sareth was waiting at the window, pressed against the glass. When she saw him, her entire body language changed. Relief. Joy. That rumbling purr loud enough to hear through reinforced walls. Daniel placed his hand against the glass. Sareth pressed her paw against the same spot. Different worlds. Different species. Same understanding. We won, Daniel said. Knew she couldn't hear him through the door. Said it anyway. We actually won. 6 months changed everything. The training yard was busy with afternoon drills. Cadets from a dozen species practiced combat formations, tactical responses, emergency procedures. Standard academy curriculum. But today something different caught everyone's attention. Sareth moved through the obstacle course like liquid gold. Over walls, under barriers, through tight spaces that shouldn't fit something her size. She'd lost weight since her rescue. Healthy weight. The kind that came from exercise and proper nutrition instead of stress and starvation. Her first shone in the artificial sunlight. Wounds healed to barely visible scars. Daniel watched from the sidelines, datapad in hand, tracking her time. She was fast. Faster than any cadet currently enrolled. Faster than most instructors. The course record had stood for 3 years. Sareth beat it by 15 seconds. She crossed the finish line and immediately looked for him. Found in the crowd. That rumble of satisfaction carried across the yard. Several cadets who would have run screaming 6 months ago now smiled at the sound. Show off, Daniel called out. Sareth trotted over. She'd been fitted with a translator collar after the hearing. Took a few weeks to calibrate properly. Learning to use it took even longer. But now she could actually communicate beyond body language and context clues. You said beat the record. I beat the record. Her voice came out synthesized through the collar. Slightly mechanical, but unmistakably hers. Problem? No problem. I'm impressed. Maybe a little worried you're making me look bad. You make yourself look bad. I just expose it. Daniel laughed. Their banter had become familiar around the academy. Other cadets didn't understand it at first. Thought maybe Sareth was being aggressive. Took time to realize this was how they showed affection. Teasing between friends that a small Threen cadet approached nervously. Pip. She'd been the second person after Daniel to actually talk to Sareth instead of just staring. Now, they were study partners. Sort of. Pip helped Sareth with galactic law. Sareth helped Pip with physical training. That was amazing, Pip said, her translator rendering the high-pitched chirps into standard language. How did you take that corner so fast? Physics. Sareth lowered herself so they were at eye level. She'd learned that small beings found it less intimidating. Use momentum. Don't fight it. Let your body flow with the movement. Can you show me? After class. We'll practice. Pip bounced with excitement. Literally. Her species did that. She rushed off to tell her friends that Sareth was going to teach her personally. Daniel shook his head. Remember when everyone was terrified of you? I remember when you were the only one not terrified. Sareth's tail swished. Content. Strange how much changes. It really was strange. The research wing had been completely shut down after the investigation. 3 directors faced criminal charges. New protocols were established for all xenobiology programs across the galaxy. Sareth's case became the standard example of what not to do. More importantly, it opened conversations about how the galaxy treated predator species. Turned out Sareth wasn't the only one facing prejudice. Just the most dramatic case. Now there were support groups, advocacy organizations, legal protections that didn't exist before Commander Yareth approached. He'd become something like a mentor to both of them. Funny how facing death together built relationships. Good run, Sareth. Daniel, you're both wanted in Base 7. They exchanged glances. Base 7 had been converted into their quarters. Larger than standard cadet housing. Modified for Sareth's needs. It was home now. But being summoned there by name usually meant something official. They arrived to find Dr. Nilera waiting with two other beings. One wore coalition diplomatic insignia. The other had Ravashi features. Male, smaller than Sereth, but unmistakably same species. Sereth froze. Made a sound Daniel had never heard before. High-pitched, questioning. The male Ravashi responded in kind, and they were both making those sounds. Complex harmonics. Their actual language. The diplomat stepped forward. Cadet read, I am Ambassador Lorn. This is Kevith, representative from Char Prime. He's been searching for someone. Kevith spoke through his own translator. Sereth, daughter of Mareth. Missing 3 years. Declared dead. Family mourned. Then we heard stories. Human and Ravashi at Defense Academy. Had to see. Had to know. Sereth's voice came out barely audible. Uncle, yes, little hunter. It's me. They touched foreheads. Traditional Ravashi greeting for family. Sereth's whole body shook. Daniel realized she was crying. Didn't know her species could cry. Learn something new every day. Kevith looked at Daniel. You saved her. Clan owes debt beyond words. Beyond action. You gave us back what was lost. I just saw someone who needed help. Daniel felt uncomfortable with the praise. Anyone would have done the same. No, most would not. Most did not. You did. That matters. Ambassador Lorne cleared his throat. We have a proposal. Char Prime wants to establish formal relations with Earth. Cultural exchange. Military cooperation. Trade agreements. Given your unique partnership, we'd like you both to serve as liaisons. After graduation, of course. Daniel looked at Sereth. She looked back. That same understanding that existed from their first meeting in the corridor. What do you think? He asked. I think we make good team. Sereth bumped his shoulder with her massive head. Gentle despite the size difference. I think Galaxy needs more beings who see persons instead of monsters. Yeah, I think so too. 1 year later, Daniel and Sereth stood on the bridge of the Coalition vessel Harmony. Not as cadets, as full officers. First human-Ravashi partnership in galactic history. First of many, if their mission succeeded. They were heading for a colony world. Prey species and predator species forced to share resources. Tensions running high. Violence threatened. Traditional diplomats couldn't make progress. So they sent Daniel and Sereth. The human who befriended a monster. The Ravashi who learned to trust. Ready for this? Daniel asked. Sereth's purr rumbled through the deck plating. With you? Always. Outside the viewports, stars streaked past. Behind them, Harmony Station where their story began. Ahead, a galaxy learning new lessons about fear and friendship. About seeing past instinct to recognize people. Daniel rested his hand on Sereth's shoulder. Right where he'd first touched her in that locked corridor. Where trust began, some bonds transcended species. Transcended evolution. Transcended the distance between worlds. All it took was one person brave enough to sit down with a monster and see the person underneath. All it took was one monster brave enough to believe that person meant no harm. Everything else followed from there.
Daniel Reed checked his messages for the third time that evening. The holographic display floated above his wrist device, showing the formal invitation from the Galactic Council. Every word was carefully translated into Earth's common language, and every sentence made his smile grow wider. He had been chosen. Out of millions of humans across dozens of colony worlds, the Council selected him to represent humanity at the Interspecies Cultural Exchange Summit. It was an honor that most people only dreamed about. The summit would bring together representatives from 40 different species, all gathering to share their cultures, traditions, and ways of life. Daniel scrolled through the invitation details until he reached the section that caught his attention. Attendees are encouraged to bring a companion animal that represents their species' relationship with other life forms. This demonstration will help foster understanding of different bonding practices across the galaxy. A companion animal. Daniel looked across his small apartment to where Rex lay on his favorite rug. The German Shepherd's ears perked up, somehow sensing that his human was thinking about him. Rex was 8 years old with a dark coat and intelligent brown eyes that seemed to understand more than any animal should. He had served 5 years as a military working dog before retiring into Daniel's care. Together they had been through training exercises, search operations, and countless quiet evenings just like this one. "What do you think, boy?" Daniel asked. "Want to go to space?" Rex's tail thumped against the floor 3 times. That was his way of saying yes to almost anything. Daniel spent the next 2 weeks preparing. He studied the other species that would attend the summit. The Planari were crystalline beings who shared consciousness with singing mineral formations. The Rumen resembled large, gentle creatures covered in moss-like fur, and they cultivated relationships with small garden animals. The Talnari were bird-like people with hollow bones and nervous dispositions. The Katiri looked like giant mantises and served as security forces across many council stations. Each species had their own idea of what a companion animal meant. Most seemed to prefer small, quiet creatures that posed no threat. Herbivores, prey animals, things that glowed softly or sang pleasant songs. Daniel looked at Rex again. The dog was currently chewing on a rubber toy, his powerful jaws making short work of it. Rex was neither small nor quiet. He was a predator, bred and trained by predators. But he was also loyal, intelligent, and gentle with those he trusted. "They'll just have to understand," Daniel muttered. The journey to the space station took 3 days aboard a transport shuttle. Daniel had secured special permission for Rex to travel in the passenger cabin, rather than cargo. The dog handled zero gravity better than expected, though he seemed confused by the floating water bowls. Other passengers were also heading to the summit. A Planari delegate traveled with a small crystal that hummed constantly. A Ruman carried a cage containing something that looked like a cross between a rabbit and a fern. There were floating jellyfish creatures, bioluminescent insects the size of tennis balls, and even a small 6-legged animal that purred like a cat. Everyone seemed very interested in each other's companions. The Planari delegate even drifted over to admire the Ruman's garden creature. But when passengers noticed Rex, their reactions changed. The Talnari delegate actually moved to a different section of the shuttle. The Planari's crystal stopped humming. Even the Rumen pulled their cage closer. "Is that safe?" asked a human crew member, eyeing Rex nervously. "Safer than most humans," Daniel replied with a slight smile. "Rex is trained better than most people I know." Rex sat calmly at Daniel's feet, his posture relaxed but alert. He had learned long ago how to behave in strange environments. The dog watched the other passengers with mild interest but made no aggressive moves. His tail occasionally wagged when Daniel reached down to pet him. The space station appeared ahead, a massive wheel spinning slowly against the black void. It was called the Harmony Ring, built specifically for diplomatic gatherings. The station housed environmental zones for different species, translation technology, and enough meeting rooms to host 100 different conferences. As the shuttle docked, Daniel felt Rex tense slightly beneath his hand. The dog sensed the change in his human's emotions. This was it. The moment they would step into a larger universe and show everyone what humans meant by companionship. "Ready, Rex?" Daniel whispered. The dog looked up at him with those intelligent eyes and gave a soft bark. Just one. Controlled and confident. Daniel grabbed Rex's leash more for show than necessity. Rex rarely needed a leash. He stayed close to Daniel by choice, not by force. They joined the line of passengers waiting to disembark. Through the windows, Daniel could see the station's interior. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some walked, some floated, some skittered on multiple legs. It was beautiful and strange and slightly overwhelming. A Katiri security officer appeared at the shuttle door, its compound eyes scanning each passenger as they departed. When it saw Rex, its antennae went rigid. "What species is that?" The officer clicked in translated speech. "Canis lupus familiaris," Daniel said calmly. "A domestic dog. My companion animal." The Katiri officer's mandibles twitched. "That is a predator species." "Yes," Daniel agreed. "And my best friend." The officer stared at Rex. Rex stared back, completely calm. His tail gave one small wag. After a long moment, the Katiri officer stepped aside. "Proceed to registration. Security will be notified." Daniel and Rex walked into the Harmony Ring together, stepping into a galaxy that had never quite seen anything like them before. Registration was supposed to be simple. Daniel had filled out all the forms, submitted all the biological data, and received approval for both himself and Rex to attend the summit. But theory and practice were two different things, especially when walking a 70-pound predator through a space station full of prey species. The registration hall stretched out before them, filled with delegates from across the galaxy. Crystal beings chimed softly to each other. Furry creatures compared notes on datapads. Bird-like Talnari perched on specially designed stands while they processed their paperwork. Everything was orderly, calm, and peaceful. Then Daniel walked in with Rex. The change was immediate. A Talnari near the entrance caught sight of the dog and her feathers puffed out in alarm. She made a sound like a whistle mixed with a shriek. That got everyone's attention. Conversations stopped. The soft chiming of planari crystals went silent. Every eye, lens, and sensory organ in the room focused on Rex. To his credit, Rex simply sat down next to Daniel and yawned. It was not an aggressive yawn. It was the yawn of a tired dog who had been traveling for 3 days and wanted a nap. But when Rex yawned, he showed teeth. Lots of them. Sharp ones designed for tearing meat. The Talnari who had shrieked suddenly collapsed, her legs folding beneath her. 2 other Talnari rushed to her side, fanning her with their wings. "Oh no," Daniel muttered. He started forward to help, but a wall of Kateri security officers suddenly appeared between him and the fallen delegate. "Hold position," the lead officer commanded. Its voice translated with a harsh clicking sound. "The predator must be removed from this facility immediately." "Rex is not a threat," Daniel said firmly. He kept his voice calm and level, the same tone he used when training new recruits. "He's a registered companion animal here for the cultural exchange." "It is a predator," another Kateri officer stated. "Forward-facing eyes for tracking prey. Powerful jaw structure for killing. Muscular build for pursuit. This creature is designed to hunt." "Yes," Daniel agreed. 10,000 years ago, his ancestors were apex predators, but humans domesticated dogs long before we had written language. "Rex is as tame as any animal in this room." A Rumen delegate stepped forward nervously, his moss-like fur rippling with anxiety. "But why would you befriend something that could kill you?" His voice was translated as soft and confused. "We Rumen bond with creatures that help our gardens grow. The Planari share songs with their crystal companions. The Talnari keep insects that eat parasites from their feathers. These are partnerships of mutual benefit with creatures who cannot harm us." "Rex can't harm me either," Daniel said. "Not by choice. Watch." He looked down at Rex. The dog's attention immediately focused on his human, waiting for instruction. "Rex, sit." The dog was already sitting, but he shifted his weight to sit more properly. "Down." Rex lowered himself until his belly touched the floor. "Stay." Daniel walked away from Rex, moving about 10 feet across the hall. Rex remained perfectly still, his eyes tracking Daniel but his body unmoving. "Come." Rex stood and trotted over to Daniel, his tail wagging slightly. When he reached his human, he sat again without being told. The watching delegates murmured among themselves. The Chitiri officers clicked their mandibles together in what might have been discussion. "Anyone can train obedience," the lead Chitiri officer said. "That does not remove the danger." Daniel had expected this. He knelt down next to Rex and held his hand near the dog's mouth. "Rex, gentle." He placed his fingers between Rex's teeth. The dog held perfectly still, not biting down, barely even applying pressure. Daniel moved his hand around and Rex adjusted his jaw carefully to avoid causing any pain. "His bite force is over 200 pounds per square inch," Daniel explained. "He could break bones in my hand without effort. But he won't because we trust each other." He removed his hand and showed it to the crowd, not a mark on it. A young Rumen in the crowd made a sound of wonder. "The predator chooses not to hurt you." "Rex chooses to be my friend," Daniel corrected. "There's a difference." The lead Kateri officer's antennae twitched in a pattern Daniel couldn't read. Finally it spoke. "The creature may remain for the summit, but restrictions apply. It must remain leashed at all times. It cannot enter feeding areas. If it shows any aggressive behavior, it will be removed and you will be expelled from the summit." "Understood," Daniel said. "Thank you." He moved to the registration desk where a nervous Planari processed his credentials. The crystal being kept glancing at Rex, its internal light flickering with what might have been anxiety. "You will be in quarters on level 7, the Planari said, its translated voice like wind chimes. "The opening ceremony begins in 4 hours, please. Keep your companion contained until then." Other delegates gave them a wide space as Daniel and Rex made their way to the elevators. A group of Talnari actually pressed themselves against the wall as they passed, their feathers flat against their bodies in fear. In the elevator, Alone, except for one brave Rumen who had stepped in before noticing Rex, Daniel scratched behind his dog's ears. Rex leaned into the touch, his tail wagging properly now. "They'll understand eventually," Daniel told him quietly. The Rumen made a small sound. "I hope you are right, human. But you must understand our perspective. To most species in the galaxy, predators are things that hunt us. We build our civilizations on cooperation and mutual benefit. The idea of befriending something that could kill us is disturbing." "I understand," Daniel said. "But humans are predators too. We have forward-facing eyes. We eat meat. Our ancestors hunted in packs. Maybe that's why we understand dogs so well. We see ourselves in them." The elevator stopped at level 7. The Rumen exited quickly, glancing back at Rex one more time before the doors closed. Daniel found their quarters and let Rex inside. The dog immediately began sniffing around, checking every corner of the room in that methodical way he had. Satisfied that their space was secure, Rex circled 3 times on the provided sleeping mat and lay down with a heavy sigh. 4 hours until we show them what real companionship looks like," Daniel said. Rex's tail thumped twice against the mat. That meant he was listening, but too comfortable to do much else. Daniel smiled and began preparing for the opening ceremony, wondering what other challenges waited for them in this station full of species who had never learned to trust a predator's love. The main conference hall reminded Daniel of an amphitheater, but designed for species that didn't all sit the same way. There were perches for the Talnari, floating platforms for species that preferred to hover, and standard seating for bipeds like humans and Rumon. Lighting adjusted automatically to each section, and the air had different compositions depending on where you stood. Daniel found his assigned spot near the middle section. Rex walked beside him, his leash loose in Daniel's hand. The dog's training showed in every step. He didn't pull, didn't sniff at strangers, didn't react to the unusual sights and smells. He was working, and Rex took his work seriously. Other delegates were already presenting their companions. A Planari stood in the center stage, its crystalline body refracting light in beautiful patterns. Beside it floated a smaller crystal, deep blue in color, that hummed in harmony with its larger companion. "We Planari bond with song crystals from our homeworld," the delegate explained through the translation system. "They grow with us, learn our frequencies, and sing our emotions back to us. When we are sad, they sing comfort. When we are joyful, they amplify that joy. It is a relationship of perfect harmony." The audience made appreciative sounds. The small crystal sang a rising note that made everyone feel peaceful. Next came a Rumen delegate, carrying a small cage. Inside was a creature that looked like a ball of moss with 6 legs and large, gentle eyes. "This is a garden helper," the Rumen said proudly. "It eats the insects that harm our crops and fertilizes the soil with its waste. We raise them from spawn and they live in our gardens their entire lives. We provide food and shelter. They provide service and companionship. It is a fair exchange." More appreciative sounds. The little creature chirped softly. A Talnari took the stage next, though she kept glancing toward Daniel and Rex with visible nervousness. On her wing perched a small insect with iridescent wings. "This is a feather cleaner," she explained. "It removes parasites and dead skin from places we cannot reach. In return, we protect it and share our food. The relationship has existed for millions of years." The presentations continued. Each species showed animals that were small, harmless, and served a clear mutual purpose. There were glowing fish that provided light in dark waters. There were creatures that cleaned waste in exchange for shelter. There were small mammals that warned of danger with their keen senses. Every single one was prey. Every single one was safe. Then it was Daniel's turn. He stood and walked to the center of the hall with Rex at his side. The comfortable murmuring of the crowd died immediately. Rex sat when Daniel stopped, his posture perfect, his attention focused. "This is Rex," Daniel began. "He is a dog, a member of the species we call Canis familiaris. Dogs evolved from wolves, which were apex predators on Earth. About 30,000 years ago, humans and wolves began a partnership that changed both species forever." A Talnari in the audience made a nervous chirping sound. "I know what you're thinking," Daniel continued. "Why would we partner with predators? The answer is simple. Humans are predators too. We have eyes that face forward to track prey. We have teeth designed to tear meat. Our ancestors hunted in groups and used tools to kill animals larger and stronger than ourselves. The hall was completely silent now. Even the planari crystals had stopped their quiet humming. But being a predator doesn't mean being a monster, Daniel said. It means understanding strength and knowing when not to use it. Dogs learned that humans were better allies than enemies. Humans learned that dogs had skills we needed. Together we became more than either species could be alone. He looked down at Rex. Show them. What followed was a demonstration of everything Rex could do. Daniel gave commands and Rex obeyed instantly. Sit, stay, come, heel down. The basics that showed control and trust. Then Daniel moved to more complex behaviors. He pointed to a spot across the hall. Rex, go there. The dog trotted to the exact location and sat. Come back. But slowly. Rex walked back at a measured pace, his eyes never leaving Daniel. Find it. Daniel had hidden a small object under one of the seats earlier. Rex immediately began to search, his nose working. Within seconds, he located the object and returned it to Daniel. The audience watched in silence. Some seemed fascinated. Others still appeared frightened. Rex was trained for military service, Daniel explained.
He can track scents across kilometers.
He can detect explosives, find missing people, and guard his team from threats. But most importantly, he knows when to act and when not to. That's what makes him a good companion. A Rumen delegate raised a tentacle-like hand. But what does he receive in return? What service do you provide him? Daniel smiled. I provide love, security, purpose. Dogs don't see relationships as transactions. They bond with their humans because that's what they were bred to do. Rex doesn't stay with me because I feed him. He stays because he wants to. To demonstrate, Daniel unclipped Rex's leash. Rex, you're free. The dog could have gone anywhere in the hall. Instead, he pressed against Daniel's leg and looked up at his human with complete trust. This is what humans mean by companionship, Daniel said quietly. It's not about mutual benefit or fair exchange. It's about loyalty, trust, and love. Rex would die to protect me, and I would do the same for him. A young Rumen in the front row stood up. Can I touch him? The adult Rumen next to the youngster grabbed their arm. Absolutely not. It's dangerous. Rex is only dangerous when I tell him to be, Daniel said. He looked at the young Rumen. You can approach, but slowly. Let Rex smell your hand first. The youngster moved forward cautiously, ignoring the protests of their elder. They extended a trembling hand toward Rex. The dog sniffed carefully, his tail beginning to wag. After a moment, Rex licked the Rumen's hand. The youngster made a sound of pure delight. It's warm and soft. You can pet his head, Daniel instructed. Gentle strokes. The young Rumen did, their face showing wonder. Rex's tail wagged harder and he made a soft sound of contentment. Other delegates began to whisper among themselves. The demonstration had shown something they hadn't expected. The predator was gentle. The predator could be trusted. The predator chose kindness over violence, but not everyone was convinced. A senior Chitauri officer stood from their observation post. This proves nothing except that humans have managed to suppress a predator's natural instincts through training. The danger still exists. Before Daniel could respond, the young Rumen spoke up. But isn't that what civilization is? Choosing to be gentle when you could be dangerous? If humans and their dogs can make that choice, shouldn't we respect it? The hall erupted in discussion. Some agreed with the youngster. Others sided with the Chitauri. Daniel simply stood there with Rex, letting them debate. A planari elder finally raised their crystalline hand for silence. This matter requires more thought. Let us continue with the remaining presentations. Daniel returned to his seat, aware of the many eyes still watching Rex. Some looked with fear, some with curiosity. A few, like the young Rumen, looked with something like hope. As the next delegate took the stage, Rex settled at Daniel's feet and closed his eyes. The dog had no idea he had just challenged the galaxy's understanding of what friendship could mean, but Daniel knew, and he hoped it would be enough. The second day of the summit started with a tour of the station's environmental gardens. These were massive biodomes that recreated different planetary ecosystems, allowing delegates to see how various species lived and grew. Daniel was actually looking forward to it. Rex needed exercise, and walking through gardens seemed like a peaceful way to spend the morning. The gardens occupied an entire section of the Harmony Ring. Transparent walls showed the black void of space beyond, making it feel like walking through impossible forests floating in nothing. Different zones contained different environments. Desert areas for species that preferred heat and sand, aquatic zones for water breathers, and a massive central garden that mixed elements from dozens of worlds. Daniel and Rex joined a group of delegates at the garden entrance. The young Rumon from yesterday was there, staying close to their elder. The youngster waved tentatively at Rex, who wagged his tail in response. "Please stay on marked paths," a Kateri guide announced. "Do not touch unfamiliar plants. Do not feed any creatures you encounter, and keep your companion animals under control at all times." That last part was said while looking directly at Daniel. They entered the central garden as a group. It was beautiful in a chaotic way. Plants from different worlds grew side by side, their colors and shapes creating patterns that human eyes weren't quite designed to process. Small creatures moved through the undergrowth. Things buzzed and chirped and made sounds that the translation system couldn't quite interpret. Rex stayed close to Daniel, his professional demeanor firmly in place. The dog's nose twitched constantly, processing thousands of new scents, but he didn't pull on the leash or try to investigate. The young Rumen and their elder were admiring a flower that sang when touched. Their small garden creature was out of its cage, hopping along beside them on its 6 legs. It seemed happy in this environment, making soft chirping sounds. "These gardens require constant maintenance," the Chitiri guide explained. "We have automated systems that monitor every plant and creature. Environmental controls adjust temperature, humidity, and light based on the needs of each zone. It is quite complex." They moved deeper into the garden. Some delegates split off to examine areas that interested them. Daniel found himself near the aquatic zone, watching fish-like creatures swim through tubes of water that somehow stayed together without containing walls. That's when Rex's ears suddenly perked up. The dog's entire body went rigid, his attention focused on something Daniel couldn't see. "What is it, boy?" Daniel asked quietly. Before Rex could respond, an alarm began blaring throughout the garden. Red lights flashed along the pathways. The Kateri guide's antennae went straight up in alarm. "Containment breach in biostorage," the guide announced. "Everyone must evacuate immediately." The delegates began moving toward the exits, but calmly. They didn't understand the danger yet. Daniel had military experience. He knew that containment breach meant something dangerous had gotten loose. "Everyone move faster," he called out. "This is serious." A section of the garden ahead suddenly exploded with movement. Something large and green burst through the foliage. It looked like a mass of vines, but these vines moved with purpose and speed. They lashed out at anything nearby, wrapping around plants and tearing them from the ground. "Hostile specimen from Sector 9, the Chitiri guide shouted. "Do not let it touch you." The delegates panicked. The orderly evacuation became a stampede. Beings ran, flew, and scuttled toward the exits. The vine creature continued its rampage, growing larger as it consumed the plants around it. Daniel ran with the crowd, Rex keeping pace beside him. They were almost to the exit when Daniel heard a sound that made his blood freeze. A child's scream. He spun around. The young Rumen was trapped. In the panic, they had become separated from their elder and had fallen behind. Now the vine creature was between them and the exit. The youngster's small garden companion was trying to protect them, hopping in front of the vines, but the tiny creature was no match for the aggressive plant. "Get everyone out," Daniel shouted to the Kateri guide. "I'll get the kid." "You cannot," the guide protested. "It is too dangerous." Daniel was already running back into the garden. He unclipped Rex's leash as he ran. "Rex, protect." The dog understood immediately. His entire demeanor changed from controlled companion to focused protector. This was what he had been trained for. This was his purpose. They reached the young Rumen just as the vine creature noticed the child. A massive tendril lashed out, aiming for the youngster. Rex intercepted it, his teeth clamping down on the vine. The plant recoiled, clearly not expecting prey that fought back. "Come on." Daniel grabbed the young Rumen, pulling them toward a side path. The main exit was blocked now, but the gardens had maintenance tunnels. Daniel had seen the access panel earlier during the tour. Rex kept the vine creature occupied, dodging its attacks and counterattacking whenever he saw an opening. The dog was faster than the plant, and his predator instincts told him exactly when to move. Daniel found the access panel and forced it open. "Inside now!" The young Rumen scrambled through. Their small garden companion hopped in after them. Daniel whistled sharply. "Rex, come!" The dog broke off his attack and sprinted toward Daniel. The vine creature followed, moving faster now. Rex dove through the access panel just as Daniel slammed it shut. A tendril smashed against the metal door, denting it but not breaking through. They were in a maintenance tunnel now, narrow and dimly lit. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. Alarms still blared muffled by the walls. "Are you hurt?" Daniel asked the young Rumen. The youngster shook their head, their moss-like fur trembling. "My elder. I got separated. They're safe," Daniel assured them. Everyone else made it out. Now we need to find another exit. But the tunnel system was a maze. Daniel tried to access the station map through his wrist device, but the containment breach had disrupted normal systems. They would have to navigate by instinct. Rex pressed his nose to the floor, sniffing carefully. Then he looked up at Daniel and gave a soft bark. "You can find the way out?" Daniel asked. Rex's tail wagged once. That was a yes. "Lead on, boy." The dog moved forward through the tunnel, following a scent trail that only he could detect. Daniel and the young Rumen followed, the small garden creature hopping along beside them. They moved through the tunnels for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. Twice they heard sounds of other creatures loose in the maintenance areas. Once something large moved through a parallel tunnel, making the walls shake. Rex growled low in his throat but kept moving forward. Finally, they reached a larger junction where several tunnels met. Rex stopped, his ears perked up and rotating. He was listening to something. "What is it?" Daniel whispered. Then he heard it too. Voices. Someone was calling for the young Rumen. It was the elder, somewhere above them. "We're here," Daniel shouted. "In the maintenance tunnel!" "Do not move," came a Kateri voice. "Emergency teams are coming to you." They waited in the junction, Rex sitting calmly beside Daniel as if this was all perfectly normal. The young Rumen reached out tentatively and touched Rex's head. The dog's tail wagged. "He saved us," the youngster said quietly. "The predator saved us." 5 minutes later, a rescue team appeared, led by the elder Rumen. The elderly being rushed to the youngster, checking them for injuries, then wrapped them in a relieved embrace. Then the elder turned to Daniel. "You risked your life for my grandchild." "Rex did most of the work," Daniel said. "He's the real hero." The elder looked at Rex for a long moment. The dog looked back calmly, his tail giving a friendly wag. Slowly, carefully, the elder reached out and touched Rex's head. "Thank you," the elder said softly. "Both of you." As the emergency team escorted them back to safe areas, Daniel noticed other delegates watching. The story of what happened was already spreading. The human and his predator had run toward danger instead of away from it. They had saved a child when everyone else had fled. Maybe now, Daniel thought, they would start to understand what humans meant by loyalty. The station had gone into full emergency lockdown. Force fields separated different sections and security teams worked to contain the escaped specimens. But the situation was worse than anyone initially thought. The biostorage facility hadn't just released one creature. It had released dozens. Daniel sat in a temporary command center with Rex at his feet, watching security monitors show the chaos. A slug-like creature the size of a car was oozing through the lower levels, leaving a trail of acidic slime. Flying things that looked like angry clouds of sparks were shorting out electrical systems. And somewhere in the dark maintenance tunnels, something was hunting the small repair robots that kept the station running. The senior Chitiri security commander stood at the center of the room, coordinating teams. "Sector 7 is sealed. Sector 9 is still compromised. We cannot get close enough to the biostorage facility to shut down its release mechanism." "What about the garden creature?" asked a plenary delegate. "The aggressive vines. Contained but still dangerous," the commander replied. "It consumed a significant amount of biomass before we trapped it. It will take days to safely remove." Daniel had been cleared of any wrongdoing in the rescue. In fact, several delegates had thanked him personally. The young Rumen's elder had even brought him a gift, a small crystal that hummed with what the translation system called gratitude frequency. But now everyone was focused on the larger crisis. The summit had been suspended. Delegates were confined to quarters, and the Kateri security forces were stretched thin trying to deal with so many escaped specimens. A new alarm started blaring. The commander's antennae went rigid. "We have another situation. A child is missing." The room went silent. "Which child?" someone asked. "The young Rumen from yesterday. They were supposed to be in their quarters with their elder, but they went looking for their garden companion. The small creature escaped during the evacuation and the child went to find it." The elder Ruman's voice came over the communication system, frantic with worry. Please, my grandchild has been gone for 20 minutes. They are alone in the maintenance sections. The commander looked at the security monitors. Those sections are not safe. We have reports of multiple hostile specimens in that area, including the specimen we call a shadow hunter. It attacks anything that moves. Send a team, a Talnari delegate demanded. All teams are deployed, the commander said. And the shadow hunter has already killed 3 security robots. We do not know how to fight it effectively. Daniel stood up. I'll go. Everyone looked at him. You cannot track the child, the commander said. The maintenance tunnels have no functioning sensors. We cannot even map where the child might be. I can't track them, Daniel agreed. But Rex can. He looked down at his dog. Rex was already standing, his body tense and ready. He knew something important was happening. The commander's mandibles clicked together in what might have been doubt. Your animal can find one small child in kilometers of dark tunnels? If he has the scent, yes, Daniel said. He turned to the elder Ruman. Do you have something that belongs to your grandchild? Something they wear or use regularly? The elder rushed off and returned moments later with a small blanket. They sleep with this every night. Daniel knelt down and held the blanket to Rex's nose. Rex, find them, boy. Rex sniffed the blanket carefully, his nose working to memorize every detail of the scent. When he was done, he looked up at Daniel and barked once. Ready. I need access to the maintenance sections, Daniel said. The commander hesitated. The shadow hunter is extremely dangerous. It moves through darkness and attacks without warning. It has venom that paralyzes its prey. Then I guess we'd better be careful, Daniel replied. A Planari scientist spoke up. Wait, if the human is going, we should give him tools. The scientist produced a small device. This emits a high-frequency sound. Our research suggests the shadow hunter is sensitive to such frequencies. It may keep the creature at a distance. Daniel took the device and clipped it to his belt. Thank you. The commander finally nodded. I will guide you to the nearest access point. But if the danger becomes too great, you must retreat. Daniel and Rex followed the commander through sealed corridors to a maintenance hatch. The commander opened it, revealing a dark tunnel that descended into the station's lower levels. The child's last known location was in this section, based on our thermal readings before the sensors failed, the commander said. But that was 15 minutes ago. Plenty of time for Rex to track them, Daniel said. He activated a light on his shoulder and checked that the sound device was working. Then he looked at Rex. Ready? The dog's eyes were focused and alert. This was what he had trained for. This was what he was born to do. They descended into darkness together. The maintenance tunnels were cramped and filled with pipes, cables, and machinery. Emergency lighting flickered occasionally, casting strange shadows. Water dripped somewhere in the distance. The air smelled of metal and something organic that Daniel couldn't identify. Rex put his nose to the floor and began to work. His tracking behavior was methodical and efficient. He would sniff an area, determine the direction of the scent, then move forward. When the trail split, he would check both paths before choosing one. Daniel followed silently, his light illuminating the path ahead. He kept one hand near the sound device, ready to activate it if the shadow hunter appeared. They moved deeper into the tunnels. Twice they heard movement in parallel passages, something large scraping against metal. Rex's ears would perk up, he would assess the threat, then continue tracking. The dog knew his job was to find the child, not to engage every danger they encountered. After 20 minutes of tracking, Rex's behavior changed. His tail went rigid. His body lowered slightly. He had found something. Daniel raised his light and saw the young Ruman huddled in a small alcove between 2 large pipes. The child was clutching their small garden companion, both of them trembling with fear. Hey there, Daniel said softly. Your elder is very worried about you. The young Ruman looked up, relief flooding their face. I heard something. Something in the dark. I hid here, but I was afraid to move. Smart thinking, Daniel said. Now we need to get you back to safety. He helped the child out of the alcove. The small garden companion hopped onto the youngster's shoulder, making worried chirping sounds. That's when Rex growled. It was a low sound, barely audible but full of warning. Something was coming. Daniel activated the sound device immediately. A high-pitched tone filled the tunnel, making his ears hurt. The young Ruman covered their hearing organs. From the darkness ahead, something moved. It was hard to see clearly. A shape that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Long limbs, multiple eyes that glowed faintly green. The shadow hunter. The creature hissed at the sound, clearly in pain, but it didn't retreat. It was between them and the exit. Back up slowly, Daniel instructed the young Rumen. Don't run. They moved backward, Rex staying between them and the shadow hunter. The dog's lips were pulled back, showing teeth, his entire body ready to fight if necessary. The shadow hunter moved forward, trying to get closer despite the painful sound. It was persistent, dangerous, hungry. Daniel increased the device's volume. The sound became almost unbearable even for him. The shadow hunter screamed and finally retreated into a side tunnel. Move now, Daniel ordered. Quickly but carefully. They ran through the tunnels, Rex leading the way back along the scent trail they had followed. Behind them they could hear the shadow hunter following, keeping its distance but not giving up. Daniel's light bounced off tunnel walls as they ran. The young Rumen kept pace admirably, their small companion clinging tight. Rex navigated perfectly, never hesitating at intersections, always knowing which way to go. They reached the access hatch and Daniel practically threw the young Rumen up through it. The elder was waiting there, along with the Kateri commander and several security officers. They pulled the child to safety. Daniel and Rex climbed out last. The moment they were clear, the commander sealed the hatch. Something heavy hit it from the other side, but the metal held. The elder Rumen was crying, holding their grandchild close. The youngster was crying too, but smiling. The small garden companion hopped between them, chirping happily. After a long moment, the elder looked at Daniel and Rex. Twice now. Twice you have saved my grandchild. I do not have words for such gratitude. Rex did the work, Daniel said, breathing hard from the run. I just followed him. The Chitauri commander looked at the dog with what might have been newfound respect. The predator tracked through kilometers of tunnel, avoided multiple threats, and led you directly to the child. That is remarkable. Rex sat down and yawned, his tongue hanging out. He looked pleased with himself. The young Rumen approached carefully and hugged Rex around the neck. Thank you, they whispered. You're the bravest creature I've ever met. Rex's tail wagged and he licked the child's face gently. All around them, delegates who had gathered to watch the rescue began to see Rex differently. Not as a dangerous predator, but as a hero. The emergency lasted another day before station security finally contained all the escaped specimens. The biostorage facility was sealed permanently, and new safety protocols were implemented. 3 Chitauri officers received commendations for their bravery. A Plenary engineer who designed a containment field was honored by the council, and Daniel Reed, along with his dog Rex, became something unexpected: celebrities. The summit reconvened in the main conference hall 3 days after the crisis. Delegates who had once avoided Rex now wanted to meet him. The Talnari, who had fainted at their first meeting, brought Rex a gift, a small carved perch that she explained was traditionally given to honored allies. Rex sniffed it politely and wagged his tail. The young Ruman and their elder sat in the front row, the child's small garden companion resting peacefully in a cage beside them. The youngster waved at Rex and the dog's tail thumped against the floor in greeting. A Plenary elder called the session to order, their crystal body chiming softly. We gathered today to resume our cultural exchange, but also to discuss what we have learned. The events of recent days have challenged many of our assumptions. Ambassador Reed, would you address the council? Daniel stood, Rex rising with him. They walked to the center of the hall together, and this time no one moved away. Some delegates even leaned forward with interest. When I came here with Rex, I knew most of you would be afraid, Daniel began. I understood why. To species that evolved as prey, a predator is a nightmare. Something that hunts you. Something that kills you. I don't blame anyone for that fear. He looked around the hall. But humans evolved differently. We were never the strongest or fastest creatures on Earth. We survived because we learned to cooperate. We formed packs like wolves. We shared food and protected each other, and eventually we met another species that understood pack behavior. We met the wolves and something amazing happened. Rex sat calmly beside him, listening to his human's voice even though the dog couldn't understand the words. Both species realized we were stronger together, Daniel continued. Wolves had better senses. Humans had better tools. Wolves could track prey for days. Humans could plan complex hunts. So we made a deal, but not the kind of deal you're used to. It wasn't about exchange of services. It was about becoming one pack. 2 species, 1 family. A Rumen delegate raised their hand. But predators compete. How did you not fight each other for resources? We did at first, Daniel admitted. The partnership took thousands of years to develop. Wolves became dogs gradually. They changed to fit into human society. We changed too. We started caring for creatures that couldn't contribute to our survival. We fed dogs that were too old to hunt. We protected puppies that might not survive in the wild. We did these things because we loved them. Love, repeated a Plenari quietly, their crystal humming with confusion. But love is inefficient. It wastes resources on creatures that provide no benefit. That's where you're wrong, Daniel said gently. Rex provides enormous benefits. Not because he helps me hunt or guards my home, though he could do both. He provides companionship, trust, loyalty. When I'm sad, he stays close. When I'm happy, he shares my joy. He doesn't do these things for food or shelter. He does them because after 30,000 years of partnership, dogs love humans and humans love dogs. It's in our genes now. In our souls, the elder Rumen stood up. May I speak? The Plenari moderator gestured for permission. I have spent my life studying companion relationships, the elder said. I thought I understood them. We Rumen bond with creatures that help our gardens, the Talnari with insects that clean their feathers, the Plenari with crystals that sing, all logical partnerships, all safe. The elder looked at Rex. But I never considered that some species might bond through trust instead of transaction, that some companions might save you not because they benefit, but because they choose to. Twice this predator saved my grandchild. Twice he risked his own safety for a creature he barely knew. That is not predator behavior. That is heroism. The youngster stood beside their elder. Rex is my friend now, the child announced. And I'm not afraid of him anymore. Murmurs spread through the hall. The Chitiri commander stood next. I must also speak. My assessment of the human's animal was incorrect. I saw only the danger, not the discipline. I saw teeth and claws, not loyalty and courage. The predator performed search and rescue better than my trained security teams. He tracked through conditions where our technology failed. And he did it all to save a child that was not even his species. The commander looked at Daniel directly. I request permission to learn more about human training methods. Perhaps there are things the Chitiri can learn from predators. More delegates stood. A Talnari scientist wanted to study the human-dog bond. A Plenari philosopher wanted to write about friendship that transcended biology. Even some of the more cautious species expressed interest in understanding this strange relationship better. The Plenari elder finally raised a crystalline hand for silence. It seems we have much to learn. Ambassador Reed, your demonstration has shown us that there are many paths to companionship. The galaxy is vast and life takes countless forms. Perhaps we have been too narrow in our thinking. I'm not asking you to all get dogs, Daniel said with a smile. Most species here wouldn't be compatible with predator companions anyway. I'm just asking you to understand that humans are different. We see strength and choose partnership. We see danger and choose trust. That's what makes us human. He looked down at Rex. And it's what makes them dogs. The summit continued for another week. Other delegates presented their cultures, their technologies, their philosophies. But the conversation kept returning to companionship, trust, and the strange humans who befriended predators. On the last day, there was a ceremony honoring those who helped during the emergency. The Chitiri officers received medals. The Plenari engineer received recognition. And Daniel and Rex were given something unique. Honorary membership in the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, with a special note that they had expanded the galaxy's understanding of what friendship could mean. As Daniel prepared to leave the station, the young Rumen came to say goodbye. The child hugged Rex one more time, then gave Daniel a small plant in a pot. It's from our garden, the youngster explained. It will grow anywhere, even on Earth. When you see it, remember that friendships can grow across any distance, between any species. I'll take good care of it, Daniel promised. The elder Rumen nodded respectfully. You and your companion have taught us that courage comes in many forms. That trust can bridge any difference. These are lessons worth remembering. On the shuttle ride home, Daniel sat with Rex at his feet and the small plant secured beside them. Other passengers still gave them some space, but now it was respectful distance rather than fearful avoidance. A Talnari even asked if she could take a picture with Rex. The dog sat proudly for the photo, his tail wagging. As Earth appeared in the shuttle window, Daniel scratched Rex behind the ears. "You did good, boy. You showed them what dogs are really about." Rex's tail thumped twice against the floor. "Job well done." Daniel looked at the stars passing by and smiled. Somewhere out there, the galaxy was reconsidering what it meant to be companions. They were learning that friendship wasn't always about mutual benefit or fair exchange. Sometimes it was about trust, about loyalty, about loving a creature not for what they could do for you, but for who they were. And sometimes, just sometimes, it was about being brave enough to befriend a predator. 6 months later, Daniel received a message from the Galactic Council. A Chitauri security officer wanted to visit Earth. They wanted to meet more dogs. They wanted to learn about training, about bonding, about partnership. Other messages followed. A Ruman scientist wanted to study human emotional bonds. A Talnari diplomat wanted to write a book about cross-species friendship. Even a Plenari philosopher wanted to come to Earth and meet the creatures who had changed their understanding of companionship. Daniel accepted them all. He and Rex would show them. They would teach them. They would help the galaxy understand what humans had known for 30,000 years. That the best friends in the universe weren't always the safest ones. Sometimes they were predators. Sometimes they had teeth and claws and powerful jaws. But they also had loyalty, courage, and love. And that made all the difference. Rex barked once from his favorite spot by the window watching the sunset. His human looked over and smiled. "Yeah, boy. We've got a lot of guests coming. Think you can handle being famous?" Rex's tail wagged. He could handle anything as long as his human was there beside him. Because that's what companions did. That's what friends were for. And that's what made them family.